Hello everybody and welcome back to my Initial D fantasy, because we are currently in the Touge of the hills of Japan. We're in Osaka and we are in Ahachi Roku. Yes, the AE86, and this one is kitted out just like Takumi. So we're delivering tofu today, we're hitting the Touge, and is that Eurobeats? Now the Toyota AE86 is going to be received by you guys probably one of two ways. Either this is just a old, slow, boring Toyota, or this is one of the most legendary cars ever to come out of Japan. And if you're a fan of Initial D, you'll probably agree with the later. Now these things, don't get me wrong, are not quick by any standard, but they have some of the best driving characteristics you could ask for in a raw, fun, engaging sports car. And this thing, I think I could call it a sports car, at least on this type of a road here, because the benefits of this car: it's lightweight. This thing only weighs about 950 kilos. It doesn't have independent rear suspension, so it's got a live rear axle. LSD, that's why this thing is so damn good at drifting. It's a 5-speed manual, and don't even get me started on the 4AG. Yes, my friends, this car was the hero car in Initial D, and you've seen this thing beating all sorts of insane JDM legends. R34s, RX-7s, GTRs, Supras. This little Toyota Corolla essentially was a supercar back in the 80s here, and I gotta tell you, it might not be a straight line performer. That is definitely not what this car is for. But on the hills of Japan here, in the Touge, I got a feeling if you're a good enough driver, mate, you will be keeping up with just about anything, because especially when you're going downhill, you know, you don't need as much power as you might think. It's the balance. It's a 50-50 weight distribution in this car, and the lightness, again, 950 kilos, that's really approaching K-car level lightness. Excuse me while I full send it. 7,600 RPM. Woo! She ain't that quick, but man alive. And then we've got the whole Japanese warning of your speed over 100 kilometers per hour, which is actually a lot trickier to do on the hills of Japan than you might think. Now this little engine, it might not put down the most ridiculous specs, because this 4AG, naturally aspirated, inline 4-cylinder, 1.6 liter, it only makes about 130 horsepower. But this thing has a system very similar to Honda's VTEC, allowing this car to redline to 7,600 RPM. Yeah, and it likes to do it. Now, Toyota did make quite a few different variants of this AE86. You know, we did have a similar one, which was called the Levin, I believe. That one didn't have pop-up headlights. And look, they did sell a few of these over in America as well, but they did get totally different models, and they really kind of went all over the place with the AE86 in the 80s, and they always do that when they ship these things out of Japan. Japan just always gets the best one. They do. And these AE86s were available from 1983 all the way up until 1987. So these really are an old car, you know what I mean? And it is quite remarkable when you get in something like this because of just how mechanical it feels, how raw this thing is. You know, you feel like you have just about zero aids in this car, but you really feel like you can push it Heel toe is easy. It's easy to rev match this car. And it just has such great balance. It really does. I previously, just yesterday, was in the RX-7 FC, which was the rival to Takumi, the Red Sun's, his particular car of choice. And I really enjoyed that vehicle. If you haven't seen it, I will leave a link for it, or you can click the pop-up banner here, guys. But I gotta tell you, there's something very unique about this little Corolla, because this AE86, it's underpowered, yes, and it shouldn't be this good, but it just is. It's just the connective steering it has, the live rear axle, just the incredible balance that this car has with lightweight frame. You go around these corners just with absolute ease. And these A86s, the Sprinter, these are getting incredibly valuable thanks to Initial D, the 90s anime series, because Takumi really did make everybody growing up then want this car. And people pay big money for this thing now. They really do. I actually had to look on car sales in Australia to see if there were any for sale. There was no ones with the pop-up headlights. So there is different variants, again, like I mentioned, so there are some without pop-up headlights. And that's still gonna be running you around 30 to 40,000 bucks. So if you actually have the original one, like we're in today, especially with the Panda paint color, the pop-up headlights, the Fujiwara decal on the side, you know, this is gonna run you minimum $60,000. That's a minimum. I haven't seen one for sale in Australia, but I know just from buying them here in Japan, by the time you purchase one, you send it over there, you do your compliance, mate, you will be lucky to get one for that money. It's really expensive now. And you really have to appreciate this little guy, because throughout its whole production, it was always the underdog and should never have been this good, because essentially this was an economy car. Like, you know, they didn't even put independent rear suspension. They did leave it rear wheel drive, and they did all of these things purely to save money. And, you know, when you sit in this car, there isn't a whole lot of flash stuff in here. Yeah, you got aircon and, you know, the pop-up headlights and stuff like that, but there really isn't anything out there beyond this car's era. And, you know, even back then, they had the Toyota Soarers, they had MR2s, they had the Supra. So this was still the underdog. And I actually think that's why they picked this car for Initial D, because it was the underdog again. And you could see it in the cutscene as the RX-7's driving down the Touge, and there's a set of lights behind him, and he just can't shake him. And he can't believe it's an AE86. And then it just goes right past him, and he's gone. And they just don't think it's possible, because, again, it's the underdog. It's only got 130 horsepower. It's a Corolla. It's an economy car. But on the curvy Touge roads of Japan, it is an absolute beast, and it is. Now, don't forget, guys, if you are enjoying this type of content, please go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button and click the bell notifications so you do get updated on all my weekly uploads. And since being here in Japan, I do have a bit of a playlist going, so I will leave a link for it right here if you guys want to check some of the other cars I've reviewed well here in Japan. There are some good ones. Alrighty, guys, we're doing a 0 to 100. I know you can't see me, but I'm gonna just show you guys what it is. Good stuff, guys. Wow. Now I'm gonna finish the video off here today, guys. So look, I had a blast driving Takumi's AE86. This Hachiroku is just next level. And for JDM fanboys, you know, I am one. This was really an unbelievable experience. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you're new here. We'll see you on that next video.